Hello and welcome again to today's webinar. It's being held in collaboration between Migrant Help and the Supper Club. My name is Jackson Harms and I'm one of the communications officers with Migrant Help. So before we start, I want to give just a little bit of background and history on Migrant Help. We were founded in 1963. We're a national charity. We support asylum seekers, refugees, and victims of human trafficking. Part of our remit is also providing advice to EU and EEA citizens in regards to the EU settlement scheme. So during last year's Refugee Week, we launched a project that perhaps some of you participated in called I Have Dreams. And the intention with that project was to shed light on and support the dreams and voices of those in the UK who have experienced displacement or exploitation. And for this year's Refugee Week, we really want to continue on with the spirit of that project. So the theme for this year for Refugee Week is We Cannot Walk Alone. It's about reaching out to people, someone who's outside of your circle who has a vastly different experience to you. It's about collaboration, working together, and the idea that supporting one another is really the best way forward. So in that spirit, we've put together what we're calling the Dream Academy. So through this academy, through this project, members of the Supper Club have agreed to offer one-to-one mentoring sessions to help refugees and those seeking asylum to identify and take steps toward the dreams that they may have. For those who have registered and shown interest in the mentoring scheme, you'll receive 2 to 3 mentoring sessions with one of the mentors to receive advice, learn skills, and really treat it as a kind of networking opportunity. So with that being said, with today's webinar, we're officially launching the Dream Academy. Today, you'll be able to hear from some of the members of the Supper Club and friends of the Supper Club about overcoming adversity and turning your dreams into reality. So we encourage you throughout this webinar to add your questions to the chat. I'll make sure that the members and friends of the Supper Club receive that here today and give you a bit of feedback and advice. And before I hand things over to Victoria, I want to thank all of you in attendance for joining us. I think we may have some of our clients here. I know that there are some people that work in the sector that are also in attendance. We appreciate all of you being here. And of course, we want to thank the Supper Club for supporting this. I don't think it would have been possible without them. So Victoria, would you like to tell us a bit about the Supper Club?
Of course. Thank you, Jackson, and hello all. Lovely to meet you. I will keep my introduction brief because I think we're all here today to hear from some amazing stories and founders of businesses who are all members or kind of friends of the Supper Club. So just to give you a bit of a context, my name's Victoria. I'm the Managing Director at the Supper Club. We are a community of founders of scaling and growing businesses. And the whole reason why the Supper Club exists is to help those who are running businesses overcome the many hurdles and challenges that come about when you're trying to grow a business. It's why we exist. We're a big believer in collaboration, supporting one another. And today we've invited for 3 members, and then Tosin, who's just started his journey of growing a business, to come and share their story with you today. So that's a little bit of context about who we are. We've got about 500 members in total in the Supper Club. Lots of interest in terms of support, in terms of mentoring. So looking forward to getting involved and to the conversation. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you, Jackson.
Thanks, Victoria. So as Victoria mentioned, we do have 4 founders, so 3 members and a friend of the Supper Club, and they'll be telling you a bit about themselves. So we have Syd, Sohin, Fleur, and Tosin, and we'll go ahead and get started. I'll leave it to you.
Hi, can we just start, yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Hi. My name's Sohin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Squid. We specialize in IT, communications, and technology. Started a business, gosh, nearly 15 years ago now. We've grown it from 0 to around 8 million. When we started a business in my friend's spare bedroom. So there was just the 2 of us. And you know, 14, 15 years later, we're up to a team of 50. Why did we start the business? I wanted to start a business since I was 25, actually, but I waited until just before my 30th birthday. So I wanted to get some skills and some bit more experience. It was quite a simple methodology. I'd worked, though I had a very low attention span, I managed to work for only 3 or 4 organizations over a 10-year span. And it was mobile, voice and data at the time. And the issue I found was every organization I worked with, there was a basic service element of the service missing, which I believe that SMEs deserved, especially if you're, you know, business size of 50 or 100 employees. And the large organizations I work with just couldn't support growing SME organizations. So we decided, me and my colleague Vince, we decided to quit our jobs. Vince had about 3 months at 10 grand saved. I unfortunately used to spend I used to spend more than I used to earn. So I decided to quit my job, just got a new house and thought, you know what, I had 3 months and I need to make Red Squid work. So yeah, started off a spare bedroom, and we, as I said, we grew. We had our first employee about a year later, and thereafter, I think we hit 1 million within the first 3 years. Bearing in mind, obviously, we had the financial crash at the time, which was quite horrific. But do you know what? That's probably our best time, actually. And now the mobile voice revenue, you know, depreciated, and you know, our product portfolio sort of diversifies as well. Unified comms, technology, and obviously managed services and IT. We've done 3 acquisitions, which have ranged from, you know, a small 100,000 to our biggest one, sort of £2 million turnover. And during the last 12 months, actually, it's during the pandemic where a lot of businesses have suffered. It was really good for us, especially on the IT cybersecurity side, where, you know, businesses had suddenly realized, you know, the digital transformation that they needed to do in 3 or 4 years' time. They needed to do it now. And that's when organizations like ourselves had to help businesses deploy working from home, you know, introduce cyber technologies as well, so they're protected as well. Sort of the plan now, I've been doing it a long time, 15 years in August. We've got a vision that we still want to grow over the next 2 or 3 years to sort of tenfold now. We want to seek private equity investment at the end of the year, so we're just getting ready for that now as well. Yes, it's really exciting, actually. I've still got the energy and the motivation after such a sustained period of time as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that. I will have a question for you, especially regarding adversity, thinking about the financial crash and now a pandemic. I think that'll be a good one.
And Brexit as well.
That's right, yeah.
I think the riff of maths is you probably had more chance of winning the lottery 3 times than those 3 happening within a 14 years span.
Bit of bad luck. Great, so we'll move on to our next founder.
Hi there, I'm Fleur. I'm the CEO and founder of 140. We are a digital commercial advisory firm. So we, for instance, might be diligencing Sohin's business when it comes to the transaction that he's hoping to get investment from. What it means in real terms is that we use digital data sets to input into commercial analytics. So we help businesses that are either invested in by private equity or the private equity investors themselves to understand the viability of a business moving forward. So we look at everything from the demand in the marketplace to the viability of their operating models, to the efficiencies of marketing spend. So anything you kind of want to need to know about a business's performance and operating potential, that's the kind of thing we diligence. The way we do it is different to the model that other consulting and advisory firms practice, because we're primarily using digital data. And if you were to ask me why I set up that firm, I mean, the reason most people start any business is because they've identified a need in the marketplace, or they believe they can do it better. I think from my perspective, it's a little bit of both. I was consulting on the sell side, so I was helping companies prepare for sale and prepare to get that incoming investment. And I saw that actually the way that firms were diligencing companies on the buy side seemed to be really kind of old school in their methodology. And they were missing some really key performance indicators that you can get from digital data. And so I think through a combination of stubbornness and experience, this is the second business I've run, and I'll talk about the first one in a second as well, which also sits in the kind of tech space. I set out to do it on my own. And so I collaborated with a couple of investors and we got this going. It's been running for 6 years now. And we're really, really kind of debunking the way things are done in the kind of corporate consulting space and annoying quite a lot of people. I don't mind annoying people if it means that the job gets done better. And in terms of my background, the name probably doesn't suggest it, but I came to the UK from Malta as a child. I'm the daughter of Dutch and French parents. In terms of personal story, my parents died very young. So actually being a female in the tech space and in finance, I think is just, it comes from within me, that fire, that determination to make something of my life, despite, you know, some awful stuff that's happened, is where it comes from. And I think it's not having that fear that acts as an advantage. And that's why I started my first business, actually, which was a social media marketing firm. Again, it was a recognition that there was a way to do things better. And if, you know, if I wasn't going to do it, who was? So and I don't think it's like having a child. There's no right time to have a baby. There's no right time to start a business. Just do it. It actually really costs very little. It's all about the conceptualization, being able to vocalize what you want to do and cracking on and not being afraid to walk into any meeting room and express your ideas, because, you know, somebody's going to buy it. So there we go. That's me.
Yeah, I think that there will be quite a few people where this kind of perseverance, despite the challenges that you face, that's going to resonate quite a bit, I suspect. But I'm looking forward to getting into that in the Q&A a bit.
Okay.
Great, so thank you. If we can move on to our next founder.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Syd. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this. It's a real honour and pleasure to be part of it. It's a great project that you're doing. So I got a bit emotional because I'm conscious that you must be going through some challenging times, and hearing Fleur talk reminded me of my story as well. 1 second. Anyway, this is supposed to be encouraging. Yeah, so I'm a founder of a digital agency, actually a global communications and technology company. We work a lot in designing websites and apps for brands across the world. We work with most of the publishers in the UK, but we do work with Dow Jones and Wall Street Journal in the US. We do quite a lot in the esports world as well, so work with Riot Games and Epic. So some of our team get to play computer games and get paid for it, which is awesome. I don't want to sell my company Clock, so I wanted to start other businesses. So it's another company called Swipe Station, which does mobile payment for fans in stadiums. We have a company called Colluda, which is a fan experience platform for rights holders to engage with fans. And then there's another company called Enemy of Boredom Esports Academy, which uses computer games as a teaching guide for young people. And we're a delivery partner for the Prince's Trust, as well as working with schools and colleges to help build confidence, especially with a lot of young people who have learning difficulties, and we had a lot of success with that. I'm very proud of it. I suppose my story, I started See, also, because I did have some challenging times as a young man, a very abusive father, and I grew up in a religious cult until I was 21, and our family home was repossessed. And then when I was 23, I was made redundant for the second time, and I tried to get jobs and couldn't. So I thought, right, well, I'll start my own job and start my own company. And this was 1997, so nearly 24 years ago. And so when I went to the bank and I said, I'd like a loan, please. This is my plan. And they told me to fuck off because I had no way of guaranteeing the loan. There was no way of getting any money to start it up. So my bank manager very kindly said, if you could get some Prince's Trust funding, I might be able to get you a small firms loan guarantee scheme. So I got a £3,000 loan and a £500 grant from the Prince's Trust and started Clock. And I had a little roll-up mattress where I used to sleep for the first 5 months because I didn't have anywhere to go. And I think I just wanted to share some encouragement, I suppose, because truthfully, there's no way I should have started a company. And you could be looking at it and go, I don't know anything about this project or what we're supposed to be doing. Sorry, guys. But that didn't matter because I was determined. And as a bit of encouragement, in 2019, Angela Duckworth did a study of 11,000 highly successful people. And they found that there's only one trait that all those successful people share, and that is grit. That's it. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how educated you are, or what you know, or who you know. Just grit is all you really need. I'll stop there for a minute.
No, thank you, Syd. From what I'm hearing a lot of echoes in all of your stories about this really kind of determination, this need to just keep moving forward. And yeah, thank you for sharing such a personal story. Yeah, we can go ahead and move on to our final founder.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. My name is Tosin. I'm a co-founder of Underdog Community. Underdog Community, the story kind of begins, I graduated in 2019, so kind of at the beginning of my journey, and I had to come into like the working world. And coming into the working world is a big slap in your face because everyone wants experience, and you're like, oh, experience, I just graduated. So it was really tough, and I kind of didn't want to settle, so I thought, okay, let me hustle. So I hustled and I freelanced, I designed websites, I was doing so much, and it started to work. People actually kind of believed in me and gave me the opportunity. And eventually what happened was I needed some interns. So I needed some interns, and I put out kind of the job post to try and get some interns. And in 1 week I had, this is like at the beginning of COVID as well. And in 1 week I had like 150 people apply. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Because 90% of those people were just graduates like myself. And I was like, this is like, we're in the same position. And a lot of those people they're employed, but they kind of weren't able to get into the marketing industry for the past 2 to 3 years on average. And I thought, okay, I wanted some interns for something else, but there's a big problem here. And that's kind of when Underdog Community was born. And what we did is we kind of did all the research, looked at UK youth unemployment, looked at Europe, we looked at the marketing industry to find out what was wrong. And what we realized is there's this opportunity kind of experience gap, because like so many people come from kind of these different fields. There's a massive like kind of supply of people who want to get into marketing, but then the demand is lower. So they can like ask for this like stupid experience from like at the entry level. So what we did is the team, kind of just young graduates like myself, is we built Underdog in 4 weeks. We did all the branding, we designed the website, all the research. And in the following 4 weeks, we tested it. So we did the test to try and get people on the platform. And in the following 4 weeks, we got 800 people to come onto the platform. So we're like, wow, it works, it works. Amazing. But then we were like, actually, then now we have to have like the real product. So the initial kind of product was to basically like have like a platform like LinkedIn, kind of similar to LinkedIn, but it's just for kind of graduates, because LinkedIn is kind of more for, it's more like kind of something like Milk Round, these kind of things, and for businesses to be able to be introduced, like startup businesses to be able to introduce to graduates and people that are studying. However, we realized there wasn't demand for this, or that's not what people really needed when we were speaking to people. So we spent like many months like just kind of having conversations about like how to kind of, what should we build? And eventually what we decided was to build a competitions-based platform. So basically what people do is if someone wants to hire somebody, rather than kind of having the CV, what you do is you run a competition, and that gives you a lot more information for the people. Then also it's not about experience, it's about talent, it's about who can actually do the job. And then we did that, and that's kind of where Underdog Community was born. So that's what we do, is we basically run competitions. And then also what we do now is we kind of, those past competitions, they act as like briefs. So if someone wants to get the experience or have, because sometimes when you're trying to start a job, like you have to kind of do like a deep dive. You have to do a deep dive and work on an internship for 3 months. So you have to work somewhere for 1 year, but you're just trying to try things out. So but what we do is we archive our previous competitions. So you can, it's kind of like just getting a taste test for different industries. So that's kind of what you're able to do on the Underdog Community platform, is to just kind of try out different briefs from real companies. And that's what we do.
Great, thank you, Tosin. So we're moving into the Q&A, so people can continue to ask questions and post comments, but I do have a few questions that came up while you were all doing your introductions, and I think it might be an interesting contrast. So Sohin, you mentioned that from quite early on, you knew that you wanted to own a business and run a business, and that you have clearly experienced quite a few hurdles and obstacles, even ones that are far outside of your personal life. So can you talk about some of those hurdles? So not just talking about external ones, maybe some personal ones as well, and just how you overcame them.
Gosh, 14 years, so many. Personal ones, about 10 years ago, my unfortunately, my kid brother, unfortunately, died. So he was only about 25. He got bullied at school, so he was on antibiotics, and unfortunately had a blood clot. So that was a very, it took many, many years, and obviously even to this day, 10 years on now. So that's probably the most personal during, but if it wasn't for my business, I don't know what direction where life would have gone, because all you did, I was off for 2 weeks, and at that time we had about 30 odd people. So work got you through it, the obsession of, just work. So I like to, I love to enjoy life and go out. And I think there was a period of time where I didn't go out, didn't socialize, and it was just work. So I'm so forever grateful for my business. So if I had a normal job at that time, or something I didn't enjoy, or something I didn't love, interesting to see how, the grieving process, and it took many, many years as well. So in terms of work, gosh, just pains and challenges all over. I think staff has been you had the financial crash, you had the pandemic and Brexit, and they were all external matters. I think the focus is you focus on the business rather than what's happening externally. Pandemic, obviously very, very different, where, everyone believed the world was going to end. We dealt with it pretty well, had a good team. And I think the business model we've got, which was contracts, it just continued, and we had technology that everyone wanted because everyone wanted to work from home. Brexit was probably the most, what's the right word? It was no one had any confidence. So, drive technology and to make businesses more efficient, which is, we're a purpose-led business, and it was quite difficult because you're an incompetent government at the time, and I'm not saying they're much better at the moment, but they couldn't get it over the line, could they? And people didn't want to invest. I think people invested more during the pandemic than they did over the 4 years during Brexit and the financial crash. We're still reeling from that, aren't we? Sort of 14, 15 years later. That was really successful for us at the time, actually. Had a little bit of restructure and really kicked on. But other than that, I mean, you get staff challenges all the time, cash flow. I think one thing I learned on cash is king, profit is vanity. Where if I look back, I probably would have invested in a CFO probably well in advance. And it was periods about 2 years ago where our business model was changed, we'd literally run out of money. And I don't worry about, I do worry, but our business partner is very different to me, where I'm quite, I think 100 miles an hour, and he's quite chilled. So when I used to worry about, well, we've got no money, what are we going to do? Anyway, we had a bit of luck, we got through it. And now that we raised a couple of million during the pandemic, and we're pretty cash rich as well. But believe me, I don't want to do that again. To have no money, it's the worst thing you can ever had in terms of staff salaries and etc. as well. But look, if I did this again, I'd probably do it in half the time, and it would be triple the size as well.
Fair enough. I am curious though. I mean, so you've been through all of this. Thankfully, you have a partner that is perhaps polar opposite, so you guys are a good balance. It helps.
It's brilliant balance, yeah.
But do you think you've developed any kind of, I don't know, like skill or coping mechanism for, okay, I have something difficult coming up. I can do this, but I just need a moment?
Coping me. I'm very impatient. So I mean, I think if I look back from 15 years ago, I'm still impatient, but I always get told I'm the worst liar. So as I can't be fake. So I've probably learned to be a bit more tolerant. I think you get bad news all the time. It's business, isn't it? You could be buzzing when you lose a customer and the contract. And I think you just need to focus. Especially if you've got a massive team, the more you scale, you get a tolerance level that, yes, this is going to go wrong and that's going to go wrong, and then you're going to win on that. Where I think when you first start, when an employee quits, it's the worst day in your life. You've lost a customer, that's it. It's, the world's going to end. Where now, I think you just need to look at the bigger picture and say that you are going to get bad luck, and you become more resilient. You get some dark days. And I think I know it's probably for later on, but if you're doing a business that you don't enjoy and you don't love, you will quit. It's who wants to put up with this crap where you're earning 6 figures and suddenly I've taken pay cuts where you're earning sod all, and you grow that resilience to say you are. I think I've more resilient than I've always been resilient as a kid, but you learned your energy as well, and where to rather than react, just see things holistically. That makes sense. And you learn that over the years as well. But every day is different in business. Just because something's gone wrong doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Where when you start off, you take it quite personally, don't you? And now look, you're running a business and you're running a team. There's going to be issues every day. It's just the way it is, isn't it?
Sure. So a bit of acceptance and a cool head will help.
Yeah. You have to have a cool head, because as you grow, if you panic or they see frustration in you, the teams start getting worried, don't they? And especially during the pandemic, staff are so sensitive, and they put 2 and 2 together and get 85.
Yeah, fair enough. So actually, I wanted to ask this question again, but this time to Tosin, because I think that might be an interesting contrast. So you're a bit earlier on in your career at this stage. So what do the hurdles look like for you? How do you manage them?
It's a fantastic question. Okay, so I think some of the hurdles we're still in this kind of testing process. So we're still testing, like, is this what people want? Is this not what people want? And I think naturally when you kind of give birth to an idea, you're really passionate about it. And as well with business, what makes sense isn't actually necessarily what sells and what customers actually want. So kind of we come up with this idea, we've iterated, and we're like, okay, this is what people are gonna want. And then they don't, and they react in a different way. And you're just like, what? And that happens over and over and over and over again. So that's one of the challenges is that we have currently is like creating our product. That's kind of what we're trying to do. Because funnily enough, because we got the kind of proof of concept from we call them the underdogs because we're underdog community. So we got the proof of concept from the underdogs. So then we went away to try and get some businesses and run the competitions, and the businesses loved it. But then the underdogs, the people who applied and actually entered the competitions, they loved it. 5 out of 5 stars like ratings. But then like there was a really like small portion that actually applied. And we're like, oh no, like we can't actually solve the problem like if we're not actually kind of giving people the experience that they need. So that's kind of where we're sat currently. But then personally, I have this constant battle because we started it a year ago, and I'm like, okay, I need to like get paid. I need to make money. And I think you kind of have this kind of in your mind, you have this kind of I wish I could, I woulda. Like I could be doing this. I wish I was here. And that's tough because you have to kind of analyze where you would like to be and then also where your business is. And I think one of the important things that I had to realize, because when I first started like freelancing after university, I felt a lot of stress. I used to have to wake up at 6 a.m. to get the stress out of my body. And I thought like, I can't go on like this. And that was the time when I had to realize that like whatever I gave out, because in school and throughout your life, you're taught kind of what you kind of produce is your value. So like if you get like an A star, if you get the best grade, that's your value. But then you come out into the real world and you're working on a business and you could put all of your effort in and you can get a big fat 0. In fact, you can get lots of minuses. And I had to get to the place where what I was kind of producing wasn't like my value. And I had to separate that. And I think that then produces like a place where no matter what's going on, like business wise, I'm like, okay, and my mental health is okay. Because when you look at the statistics, people who start businesses, they're 50% more likely to go through these struggles. And when you look at successful entrepreneurs, they've fought these kind of battles. So I had to get to a place where I was like, I'm not going to let my emotional state kind of be determined by this. And it's kind of the mentality that like I won't get too carried away when it goes up or be too sad when it goes down. And I think also as well is just kind of it's all about the small wins, and more than anything, it's about, for me personally, it's about the people. It's always about the people, that my team, because it cannot work, and I'm prepared for it not to work. But the thing that I'm going to definitely always hold on to is my team and the people that I am working with along the way.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to make. This idea that it can be a bit detrimental to tie your value and self-worth to some of the projects that you're doing. I mean, of course, it's important to invest yourself, but I think you're right about going easy on yourself. That's probably what I'm taking away from you. So this next question is for Fleur. So we've been talking about hurdles and how we overcome them. And you mentioned in your introduction that one of the hurdles, it's external, it's social, societal, is the kind of underrepresentation of women in tech. I'm sure that many of us that fall in these kind of marginalized communities or groups can become discouraged. So is there, what was your experience like? How have you overcome that challenge? And do you have any advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds very silly, but I completely ignored the prejudice every time I walked into a room. I straddle 2 minority sectors in business, in as much as I'm a woman in tech and a woman in finance. And I think the biggest representation is in tech at about 14%, and finance is still represented at 8%. And I think I don't know. It depends on your personality type. I think you have to be really aware of yourself and your personality type in order to encourage yourself to respond to situations in the right way. And by that, I mean, if you are looking at the DISC personality types, I'm a dominant type, so I couldn't give a stuff what people think of me. Therefore, I don't really have a problem walking into a room full of guys, which I do often. Just as a point of note, I make sure that actually the team I've employed, there are 14 of us now, 50% representation by women. I think there's a minority representation of UK employees, actually British employees. And I think that by encouraging diversity in my team, that makes for a richer proposition anyway. But I know that other people do get very affected by it. I think it can be, there's, you know, you can walk into a room and there are cultural and religious and personal connotations to being in a room full of men. And that can be quite difficult. So I think there are practical ways to overcome that. You know, I did have a client who was particularly misogynistic, quite frankly, and I used to bring in a junior male colleague with me and just brief him in on what I wanted to say, and get him to do the delivery. And in the first instance, just to kind of get them talking and, you know, try and relax the shoulders of the men in the room a little bit. And then you just go in and ace it because, hey, you know, we're all equal, right? So if you've started the business, you know best how to communicate your proposition, how to communicate your culture, and you almost disarm them in a way that's appropriate, but that gives you the space to actually do the talking, if that makes sense. So I guess that's one practical example as to how I've overcome that, aside from the wider, you know, the wider industry, encouraging the employment of women, encouraging the employment of diverse cultural and ethnic personnel, employing the right people for the job, because reverse prejudice is a thing as well. You can't only employ women for diversity, you know, I've got to employ the right people for the right roles as well. So so I'm very aware of that, but also being parts of these groups, being a mentor as well, and trying to encourage more people to enter the space at grassroots levels. I think education is a key thing, and, you know, sending my own daughter on STEM courses in the summer and engineering camps and things like that probably is a small contributing part.
Yeah, no, I think that that's wonderful. I do think that some of these prejudices can be kind of taken on early on, and even affects the kind of decisions that we make and which paths we choose to go down. So that's fantastic. Great, Syd, I'd like to hear from you again. So we're kind of keeping with this theme of hurdles and difficulties, and you mentioned in your introduction the word grit. So how do you continue on? How do you keep your energy up, your drive and desire to keep working? Where does that come from?
Thanks, Jackson. I'm feeling much better now, by the way. I'm back in the room. Apologies for earlier. Okay, so I think grit is an interesting one, but it actually goes back to some of the previous questions, to be honest. And I think there are certain beliefs that we hold that can be limiting beliefs or enabling beliefs. And so I learned to approach things in a slightly different way. One of the things I assume that most people are decent. And I think that whatever they're going through, you know, when someone reacts badly to you or horribly to you, there's probably something gone on that's made them be like that you have no knowledge of. So I try and just to give everyone the benefit of the doubt a bit and not let it get to me. Because the truth is, I think when you look at peak performance versus boredom, and pressure, sorry. There was a study done by Hicks and Dodson, and they observed this effect that you need some pressure in life, otherwise you're bored. And then there's a bell curve that goes up, and the more pressure, then you get some peak performance. But then if you get even more pressure, then you start performing less, and here are dragons. Now, you can't keep peak performance all the time. You need to be moving around sort of that area. And the truth is that nothing changes that. And the only thing that then you can do is manage your presentation and representation of the things that happen to you in life in a more positive way, or in a way that makes it easier to deal with. So I use something called Reframing. Reframing is an incredibly powerful tool to be able to just look at things in a slightly different way. And I learned some, there's something called neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, which is an interesting concept. There's a lot of bollocks in it as well about trying to manipulate other people, but some really interesting things around controlling yourself and controlling how you feel and how you see the world. And if you can find better narratives to give, then you'll be happier. And I think we can always think of a negative story, a negative connotation to anything. Conversely, you can also think of something positive. So when someone cuts me up in the road, I think, well, maybe they've got a hospital appointment to get to, or their child's sick, or something else that I just don't know about. Now, there are certainly some dickheads, I'm sure, but I don't worry about that. And I just try to find ways of removing anger and jealousy out of my life, because they never make anything better. You know, I threw all my toys out of the pram and everything was better as a result. Said no one ever. And I think learning to reframe and reposition anything in life is really powerful. And even things like cognitive behavioral therapy. And so I did some self-hypnosis and went through some of the difficult times that experience I'd had as a young boy. And I managed to find peace with a lot of those things. And it's not easy, but it's essential, I think. And because we'll always be triggered otherwise in anything else in the future where something happens and then we can't control ourselves. I say that, and as you can see, I'm a very emotional and passionate person still, but I don't get angry or jealous anymore. And when someone says, you know, you can't bottle it up, Syd, I say, I don't. I just fast forward mentally till it doesn't bother me anymore. And it means that the pressure that I have in life is reduced significantly, because I think, was it as Seneca the Younger said, who was a great Stoic, he said, we suffer more in our imagination than we do in reality. And that's very, very true. And so I think there are enough challenges, real challenges in life, worry about those and do something about them, but try not to worry about things we don't need to worry about, which is often the case.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned reframing. I think that can be used in so many contexts. I know that for us, you know, the kind of conversation around asylum and refugees and trafficking in some occasions can get a bit heated, but I find reframing helps with dialogue. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that one up. So I wanted to move on to a bit more practical advice, the kind of stuff that people can do right now. So Sohin, this question is for you. We've had some interest, the people who've signed up. We're hearing that they'd like to start businesses soon. So what is something that someone could do right now, whether that's a bit of research or things of that nature?
Do you mean in prepping themselves?
Yeah, exactly.
Research, what problem are you solving? What's in terms, when we started our business, it was such a simple concept, and it was just delivering a better service. When Amazon started, it was such a simple simple methodology. Know your market, that makes sense as well. And in terms of service and what problem are you solving? And if you get the problem solving right, when you're speaking to the customers and articulating that, you know, this is what you've got now and this is what I'm solving for you, customers will pay for it.
Yes, straightforward enough. Fleur, would you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right, Sohin. Yeah, you're either solving a need or solving a problem. I would say the additional advice is just to know your proposition, really know what it is you're delivering. It's quite easy when you're starting up a business to be too agile and almost respond to the customer or the potential client in front of you and kind of just go, yeah, I do that. Now, Tosin's a good example of how that can really work for you very well, because he kind of said yes to a couple of projects and brilliant. They worked out, and hats off to you. I think as you get more into the weeds of your business, you will know what your proposition is, and just stick to your apples, you know, stick to the bread and butter. And once that's really established, that's when you can start looking at new verticals, new products, new territories, and all sorts of other things. But establish your baseline first, I would say. And then I put a few notes in the old chat as well, and it pertains to what Syd said. Lose your ego as a business founder. It doesn't serve anybody. Practice gratitude daily. I'm so grateful to my clients, but also my staff, and manifest positively. I think it's been said a few times as well. Thinking negative thoughts draws negativity towards you. It's actual physics. So, you know, just retain your zen and positivity, and you'll get there.
Yeah, kind of like with Syd mentioning framing, I think a lot of the advice we're hearing today is applicable in so many different contexts. So I'm glad that we're all getting to hear that. So Tosin, Fleur mentioned, you know, you had your hands in a lot of pots and you're surrounded by a lot of people. I think that leads pretty well into the next question. So few questions about networking. So how do you network? How do you meet people?
That's a great question. And I think I have a good story for that. And that's how I kind of met like everyone at the supper club. And I came in for an interview. So I think interviews are fantastic opportunities to meet people. Reason is because normally by the time you've gotten the interview, that person's actually invested into you. From like kind of personally, like also having to recruit people, you get really invested into the people that like you're hiring. And just because you didn't hire that person, it doesn't mean that you didn't form some sort of connection with them. So I came into the Supper Club to that beginning of like kind of a few months before I started Underdog Community, and I felt that connection. I met Joe, who's an advisor for Underdog, and he was my interviewer, and we had like one of the best interviews, and I felt that connection. I met Victoria as well, felt that connection. I didn't get the job, but in that interview, I knew like I have to know you, I have to learn from you, and that's the most important thing. So I think this is kind of something I was mentioning earlier. The kind of opportunity may change, but the people doesn't, and like opportunities themselves come from people. So I chased Joe for many weeks, and what happened was we worked on a startup idea together, and I was working on some startup ideas with him, and then he had a startup that kind of got sold and he got a bit busy, and in that time I made Underdog, and then I had someone to sound check Underdog with, and he introduced me to somebody else. I think I wrote a post about this, is you just kind of need like one person who believes in you, and someone that you can really trust. It can be difficult to find like someone that believes in you, but as soon as you find them, like really hold on to them, because what will happen is they will quite naturally introduce you to like the people that they care about. And that's what happened. So I was this kind of young graduate. He introduced me to someone else that helped him. His name is Tim. And Tim gave me an office like in London. So I was working through like in their office in London. It was a fantastic opportunity. And they guided me through the first kind of like beginning steps of Underdog. And then I needed a co-founder. So I was working alone a lot, and I was like getting a bit exhausted. And I was like, this is kind of law of attraction, because I was like, I really want a co-founder. I remember I messaged my friend, I really want a co-founder. And then I had someone message me from the Underdog community in Underdog, and he says, I really want to speak to you. I've kind of noticed all of these things. And And then I had a call with him, and his name is Rowan, and he blew me away. And I was like, oh, this guy's amazing. And we had that connection again. So I think kind of when we're thinking about like networking, we can often like think about people who kind of are kind of where we want to be, but also people who aren't necessarily where we are, that we can also give an opportunity, because eventually that person is going to also become someone. So I guess if you look at it from Joe, I wasn't anyone, but I've kind of been able to build something, but he saw something and invested in that. And I saw that in Rowan. I was like, this guy's amazing. And Rowan now actually works at the Supper Club. So it's like kind of this 360 is kind of mixing around.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So nurturing relationships, being open, right? That's what it's all about. Syd, would you have any additional tips as far as networking goes?
Absolutely. In fact, there's a guy known to many people called Ollie Barrett, who's dubbed as the most connected man in Britain by Guardian and GQ magazine. And I was honoured to be interviewed by him on an audio course that he produced recently called Build a Better Network. And he has a whole, as a 15-part course, audio course on building a better network. And he has dozens of ideas and tips of how to get in touch with people and maintain and create and maintain relationships. Things like just following someone on Twitter and sending them a note. It's amazing the number of people who you think are incredibly busy and powerful, but actually a note saying, I heard what you did and I was really inspired by that, thank you. Asking how you can help people. If you go along to an event, a networking event, thinking, what's in it for me? How am I going to get helped out of this? Then you'll often be disappointed. But if you go there thinking, how can I help someone? And then there's often a good chance that you will. In fact, there was an event that Ollie hosted once, and he said at the start, how many of you have would like to sell something today? And every hand went up. And how many came here looking to buy something today? I said, well, not many hands went up. So, well, you see, there's going to be a mismatch there. But he was always about paying it forward, and as I have been as well, and that makes life a much better and happier place. I think a number of people have said to me, Syd, you could have been more successful more quickly if you'd been a bit more ruthless. And I say, well, that depends on your definition of success, doesn't it? But you know, Tosin, I was absolutely right. Build a better network. How to get that, how to make that happen, we call. And I know I just see that Victoria shared the link. I'm pretty confident that Ollie will be happy for you guys to use a free links. In fact, we have a number of Kickstarters working with us. I'll just double check with him, but I'm pretty sure that he would give a free access to the people here who would like to be part of it. It usually charges £200, but yeah, he wants it to be accessible to everybody. So that would be really cool.
Yeah, thank you, Syd. And if you do check in with them, let us know. We have everybody's contact information. We can relay that.
I'll do that straight away.
And I do have a question here in the chat. Hopefully, Sohin, you can answer this one. Question reads, many inventors, scientists were immigrants, for example, Einstein. I'm now a medical school student, but 3 years ago, I was a medical inventor, and I had many inventions. But now, when I've moved to the UK, I could not do anything. Is there anyone here with experience about innovation centers or business incubators?
Really good question, actually. Yes, this Vodafone have actually got one. I just need to find out where, though. They've got so we've got a pretty close relationship with them. There's someone else that doesn't come to mind, but I know Vodafone have got 2 or 3 of these innovation hubs. Can I come back to you in terms of where they are?
Sure, I think we're getting pretty close to the end here, but yeah. Just as with Syd, if you can think of that, just let me know. We have everyone's contact information.
Literally, when I get off here, I'll find out from you. So speaking to them this afternoon, they've got a couple as well. There's one in London. I'm not sure where the other one is actually. And actually read an article on it recently as well.
Good timing. Okay, so yeah, as I said, we're kind of coming to the end here. I think that there's just one question I'd like all of you to answer. If there's one piece of advice you could offer especially to someone who's aspiring to start a business, what would that piece of advice be? And hopefully we can start with Tosin.
I went first. Okay.
No pressure.
Yeah, I would say speak to as many people as possible. So I think, but you trust. And sometimes people say that when you're starting a business, don't speak to anyone. But I think like speak to people, sound and get your kind of your idea sound checked. Does it make sense? And what do people think about it? And often what you find is when you begin to kind of, that's also like the process of networking. That's kind of also how kind of people give advice, and people also get invested into your idea as well. And when people get invested, they'll kind of help sometimes to put some kind of slabs in your path to help you to kind of bunny hop to where you want to be. But yeah, that was off the cuff.
No, that was good for being spontaneous. Syd, what would be your one key piece of advice?
Oh, I know. Don't listen to people, because if I listen to everybody, everyone said, including my mum, don't start a business. You'd have a clue what you're doing, and they were right. And it takes all sorts. But you're actually right as well, Tosin. Look, fundamentally, any business is about sales. So you've got to be able to sell it, and if people buying, then hustle it. I think it's still got to be about just staying determined. And I think you can't just keep on running up against the brick wall. If you start something because you think it's good and no one else does, then learn and evaluate and react. But yeah, stick with it, adapt and continue. Just keep going on. It's that we don't have much of a choice really, and desperation is quite a good motivator. And I think, look, sometimes I remember when I was traveling and I was I'd run out of money. And I was trying to get a job as a waiter because I'd done that a bit before, but there were no jobs for it. So I could afford a bucket and a squeegee and chamois leather, and I went window cleaning. And I started a window cleaning business because windows need cleaning. And I had a car cleaning business as well, where you can just knock on doors. And if you need cash, that's a way of doing it. Very rarely are windows cleaned and cars cleaned that well. And it's a way of starting. When you just need some cash in, find whatever you need to do and do it, and then skill up in the meantime to do whatever your dream is. Maybe that's the best advice.
Yeah, that was great. Sohin, what would be your final
agree
piece?
on with all the guys have said. It is about sales. It helps if you love what you do, in terms of the products, or your concept or your idea. Resilience, speak to lots. I think you're not having that ego and stuff. And I think I learn every day. I make mistakes every day as well. But learn from everyone you speak to, everyone you network with. I know you've asked one, but I think all of us have come up about 20, haven't we, as well? So, but yeah, it helps if you're really passionate about it, because there's going to be times where days are dark, and if you don't believe in what you do, or what the product or the technology or whatever it is, you're just going to give up, aren't you? In the end, and really believe in what you're delivering. Yeah,
I know I've mentioned this several times before, but all of this advice is applicable in so many instances. So I think I'm hoping it's been helpful.
But yeah, as the guy said, it's about selling, really, isn't it? I mean, whatever you've got, if you don't sell, you're not going to make any money, are you?
Yeah, fair. Great. So we are just about at the end of our time here, but I wanted to quickly thank, of course, our four founders, so Sohin, Syd, Tosin. I know Fleur had to leave a bit early. And of course, Victoria, thank you for helping to put this together. Really looking forward to seeing what the mentoring sessions are looking like. And to those who have signed up for the event and are also interested in mentoring, and you've indicated that, we have all of your contact information. We'll get in touch. I think Sohin and Syd will get back to me regarding some additional resources that they mentioned. I'll make sure to include that. Yeah. So yeah, great. Thank you. And I hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Bye.